The crystal towers of Nexus Prime gleamed under 3 different suns. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the massive halls, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Today would change everything for humanity. She just didn't know how badly yet. The Galactic Council chamber was bigger than any stadium on Earth. 12 different species sat in a perfect circle, each more alien than the last. Sarah took her place at the small human podium, feeling very small and very alone. High Counselor Vextar of the Zephyrians floated above his crystal seat. His body looked like living diamond, and when he spoke, his voice rang like a bell in everyone's mind. The Council will now discuss Resolution 2387. Sarah's translator buzzed in her ear. She had read the resolution 3 times but still couldn't believe it was real. For too long, Vextar continued, we have watched the humans spread across space like a virus. They have no respect for order. They fight among themselves. They destroy their own worlds with wars and pollution. The insectoid queen of the Hive Collective clicked her mandibles in agreement. Her thousands of eyes turned toward Sarah. The humans went from wooden boats to faster-than-light travel in only 500 years. This is not natural. This is dangerous, Sarah stood up. With respect, High Counselor, humanity has the right to... Silence. The word hit Sarah's mind like a hammer. Vextar's telepathic power was overwhelming. You will speak when given permission. Sarah gritted her teeth but sat down. She had been warned about this. The Council didn't see humans as equals. Elder Luminous of the energy beings flickered between blue and white. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music. Our science teams have studied human behavior for 50 years. The data is clear. Humans are too aggressive, too unpredictable, too chaotic to govern themselves. They still use projectile weapons, laughed War Leader Brutus of the hegemony. The massive reptilian being was covered in battle scars, throwing bits of metal at each other like primitives. They know nothing of real warfare. Their art has no structure, added Artist Prime symmetry of the Geometric Collective. The being was perfectly triangular, rotating slowly as it spoke.
Chaos without meaning.
They create for emotion instead of mathematical beauty, Sarah wanted to scream. These beings had never walked through the Louvre or listened to Beethoven. They had never seen a human parent sacrifice everything for their child, or watched strangers help each other during a disaster. Ancient whisper in darkness of the void, speakers made sounds like grinding metal. Its translator struggled with the alien language. The young species always need guidance. We have done this 1,000 times before. Exactly, Vextar said. Every young species in galactic history has benefited from our guidance. The aquatic Cathera, the crystalline resonance, the gaseous drifters, all were once as chaotic as humans. Under our care, they found peace and order. Sarah finally understood. This wasn't about helping humanity. This was about control. The Council had been doing this for thousands of years, taking over younger species for their own good. The decision is clear, Vextar announced. Humanity is too dangerous to rule itself. From this day forward, all human worlds will be placed under protective governance. The word protective made Sarah's stomach turn. Human military forces will be disbanded immediately, continued the Zephyrian leader. Human governments will be replaced with council administrators. Human expansion into new systems will cease until you have learned proper civilization. Each council member voted in turn. The Hive Collective's queen made clicking sounds that meant yes. Elder Luminous pulsed bright yellow for agreement. War Leader Brutus roared his approval. One by one, all 12 species voted to end human freedom. Sarah stood again, her hands shaking with rage. You can't do this. Humanity will never agree to... You have no choice, Vextar interrupted. We are offering you the gift of peace and order. Accept it gracefully or it will be forced upon you. 30 standard days, announced Data Core Nexus of the Machine Collective. The robotic being's lights flashed red. All human worlds have 30 days to accept council administrators. What if we refuse? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. War Leader Brutus showed his massive teeth in what might have been a smile. Then we will enforce the resolution. For your own good, of course. The other council members made various sounds of agreement. They had done this before. Many times. This session is closed, Vextar declared. Ambassador Chen, you will return to your people and explain their new situation. Make them understand that resistance is futile. Sarah looked around the chamber one last time. These beings saw themselves as gods deciding the fate of younger species. They had technology that was thousands of years ahead of humanity. They had powers humans couldn't understand. They ruled over dozens of species across the galaxy. But as Sarah walked out of the chamber, she thought about her own species. Humans had survived ice ages and plagues. They had fought wars that should have destroyed them but came back stronger. They had looked at the impossible and called it a challenge. The Council thought they knew humans. They had watched from far away and seen only chaos and violence. They had never lived among humans. They had never seen a human mother fight to save her child, or watched humans work together when everything seemed hopeless. Sarah activated her communication device as she left the Crystal Towers. The message she sent back to Earth was simple. The Galaxy Council has declared us children who need babysitters. They want to take away our freedom for our own good. They've given us 30 days to submit. She paused, looking up at the alien stars above Nexus Prime. Then she added, "They don't know us very well." Back on Earth, her message reached the United Earth government within minutes. Emergency meetings began immediately. Military leaders were called in. Scientists started working on new projects. Colonists on distant worlds received the news and began making their own preparations. In the council chamber, Vextar felt satisfied. Another chaotic young species would soon learn the benefits of proper order. The galaxy would be more peaceful with humans under control. He had no idea what was coming. Across human space on hundreds of worlds and thousands of ships, the same message spread. The aliens thought humans were children who needed guidance. They thought humans were too chaotic and dangerous to be free. They were about to learn that they were right about humans being dangerous, but they were very, very wrong about everything else. The 30-day countdown had begun. The Galaxy Council expected submission. They were going to get something else entirely. Admiral Marcus Torres stood in front of the camera, his gray hair perfectly neat despite the chaos around him. Behind him, Earth's orbital defense stations moved into position. The blue planet turned slowly, beautiful and defiant. "Citizens of the galaxy," Torres began, his voice calm and steady. 3 days ago, the Galactic Council declared that humanity must give up its freedom. They say we are too young and too dangerous to rule ourselves. He paused, looking directly into the camera. Every human world would receive this message. Every alien species would intercept it too. Our answer is simple. We decline. Across the galaxy, the Council species received the broadcast with shock. In the crystal towers of Nexus Prime, High Counselor Vextar stared at the message in disbelief. "Decline?" he whispered to his fellow council members. "They cannot decline. No species has ever declined council guidance." War leader Brutus of the hegemony laughed. "Let them refuse. It will make crushing them more enjoyable." But Elder Luminous flickered nervously between colors. "This is unprecedented. Our records show no species has ever refused protective governance." Meanwhile, on the mining world of Ceres Station, Administrator Janet Walsh received the Admiral's message while coordinating asteroid operations. She immediately sent her own broadcast to the Council. "Ceres Station declines your governance. We're doing fine on our own, thank you." The same message came from Europa Base, from the agricultural colonies in the Kepler system, from the research stations on the edge of human space. Not one human world accepted Council rule. This confused the Council greatly. In their thousands of years of experience, younger species always submitted. Some resisted at first, but they always gave in eventually. The Council's technology was superior. Their ships were faster. Their weapons were stronger. Resistance was truly futile. The Zephyrians decided to use their most powerful weapon first, their minds. Vextar gathered his people's greatest telepaths and focused their combined will on human consciousness. The psychic wave rolled across space like an invisible tsunami. It had toppled governments before, turned entire species into willing servants. The Zephyrians waited for reports of human surrender. Instead, they got headaches. "Impossible!" Vextar gasped, his crystal body flickering with pain. "Their minds, they're like storm clouds. Chaotic. Unpredictable. We cannot get a grip on their thoughts." Dr. Lisa Park, a neuroscientist on Earth, studied the alien mental attack with fascination. "It's trying to impose order on human consciousness," she reported to military command. But human brains don't work that way. We're too random, too creative. It's like trying to control a hurricane with a butterfly net. The energy beings tried next. Elder Luminous and its people reached across space to disable human technology. They had done this before, simply turning off enemy computers and weapons from light years away. But human technology was different. Where other species built elegant, organized systems, humans built chaotic messes that somehow worked. Every human ship was unique. Every computer system was modified. Every weapon was customized. Their technology makes no sense, Elder Luminous reported, its form flickering with frustration. Ship systems connected with spare parts and tape, weapons modified beyond recognition. We cannot find standard systems to disable. Captain Elena Vasquez was exploring a dead system on the edge of human space when the real surprise happened. Her ship, the Persistence, detected massive energy signatures from what should have been empty space. Captain, her science officer reported, there's something huge out there, but it's been dormant for millions of years. Elena ordered a full scan. What they found changed everything. The Void Hunters had been the galaxy's greatest threat eons ago, an ancient species that built self-replicating war machines before destroying themselves in a final battle. Their automated defense systems had been sleeping in dead space ever since, waiting for their creators to return. Elena made a decision that would have terrified any other species captain. She flew straight at the ancient machines. "This is Captain Vasquez of the human vessel Persistence," she broadcast on all frequencies as weapon systems older than most stars powered up around her ship. "We're not your enemies. We're explorers, like you once were." The Void Hunter machines scanned her ship, her crew, her intentions. What they found confused their ancient programming. These weren't conquerors or destroyers. These were curious beings who traveled among the stars simply to see what was out there. The machine's artificial intelligence had been alone for millions of years. It remembered its creator's final days, when fear and hatred consumed them. But these humans felt different. "You are young," the machine intelligence finally responded, its voice carrying the weight of ages, "but not afraid. Why do you seek us out instead of fleeing?" Elena smiled. "Because you're interesting, and because we could use a friend." It was the first time in galactic history that anyone had successfully communicated with Void Hunter technology. When Elena's ship left the dead system, it carried data and technology that made the Council's weapons look primitive. News of Elena's contact spread through human space like wildfire. But it also reached the Council. "Impossible," Data Core Nexus computed frantically. The Void Hunters destroyed 12 civilizations before going extinct. Their machines kill everything that approaches. How did the humans not only survive contact, but gain their cooperation? Ancient Whisper in Darkness made grinding sounds of concern. "The young species shows no fear. This has never happened before. Our models are incorrect." War leader Brutus was tired of surprises. "Enough. I will lead a fleet to the Sol system personally. These humans need to learn their place." But as his ships prepared for battle, reports came in from across the galaxy. The proud Nexari warrior caste, who had never been defeated in single combat, sent disturbing news. Human Marines had somehow beaten their champions using tactics that made no sense. "They do not fight with honor," the Nexari War Master reported. "They use the environment as a weapon. They fight in teams instead of dueling properly. They improvise constantly. Our warriors cannot predict their actions." The ethereal communes, masters of energy manipulation, reported similar problems. "Human engineers have weaponized quantum uncertainty itself," their leader announced. "They build devices that should not work but do. They break the laws of physics through sheer stubbornness." Most disturbing of all, the Ancient Architect Collective discovered that humans were waking up dead technology everywhere they went. Machines that had been silent for millions of years suddenly activated when humans were nearby. "There is something about their presence," the Architect Prime reported. "They interact with ancient systems in ways we cannot understand. Technology responds to them that has ignored us for eons." High Counselor Vextar felt the first tremor of something he had not experienced in centuries: uncertainty. These humans were not behaving like any species in council records. They were unpredictable, chaotic, and somehow successful in ways that should be impossible. Perhaps, he said slowly, we should study them more carefully before taking action. But war leader Brutus was already launching his fleet. Study time is over, he snarled. It's time to teach these young mammals their place in the galaxy. As his massive warships entered hyperspace toward the Sol system, Brutus felt confident. He had conquered dozens of worlds. His weapons could destroy planets. His shields could stop any known weapon. He had no idea what humans had been building while the council debated. The war that would shake the galaxy was about to begin. Dr. Kenji Tanaka wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the ancient symbols carved into black stone. The archaeological site on Ruins World Sigma-7 had been dead for millions of years, but something about it felt alive when humans were present. "Professor," his assistant called out, "you need to see this." Kenji climbed down into the newly excavated chamber. The walls were covered with symbols from different civilizations, layer upon layer of ancient writing. But these weren't random artifacts from various species. As Kenji studied them more carefully, a chill ran down his spine. "These symbols," he whispered, "they're from the council species, but not the current ones. These are much older." His team gathered around as Kenji translated the ancient text. The story that emerged was shocking. The current Galactic Council wasn't the first. Every member species had once been different, younger, more chaotic, more like humans. The Zephyrians weren't always crystal beings, Kenji explained to his team. They were once organic, emotional, unpredictable. The hegemony used to be peaceful explorers before they became warriors. The energy beings were once solid creatures who built with their hands instead of their minds. But the most disturbing discovery was the final message, carved deeper than all the rest. The words were written in a language that predated any known council species. When the young ones with enduring fire return to walk among dead gods, the cycle nears its end. What was forgotten will be remembered. What sleeps will wake. The galaxy will choose growth or stagnation, chaos or death. Kenji sent his findings to Earth immediately. Within hours, every human scientist and historian was studying the implications. Meanwhile, war leader Brutus prepared his enforcement fleet in the staging area near Nexus Prime. He had brought the most powerful ships in the galaxy, planet crackers that could split worlds in half, shield generators that could protect entire star systems, weapons that could turn suns into supernovas. "This will be over quickly," he told his sub-commanders. "Humans have primitive technology and no real military experience. We will demonstrate council power and accept their surrender." Intelligence reports from across human space supported his confidence. Human ships were small and lightly armed. Their weapons used simple kinetic energy instead of sophisticated particle beams. Their defenses relied on primitive armor instead of energy shields. But as the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, disturbing reports continued to arrive. On the industrial world of Forge Prime, Nexari warriors had challenged human marines to combat trials. The Nexari were 8 feet tall with natural armor and centuries of combat training. They had never lost a formal duel. Sergeant Mike Rodriguez was 5 feet 6 inches tall and had been a Marine for 3 years. When the Nexari champion issued his challenge, Mike accepted immediately. The duel should have lasted seconds. Instead, Mike did something no Nexari had ever encountered. He improvised. When the alien warrior charged with his energy spear, Mike dove between his legs and hit him with a wrench. When the Nexari tried to use his plasma breath, Mike threw sand in his eyes. When the champion attempted his traditional finishing move, Mike used the arena's own lighting system to blind him temporarily. "This is not honorable combat," the Nexari War Master protested. "No," Mike agreed, standing over his defeated opponent. "This is effective combat." Similar reports came from other worlds. Human engineers were building impossible devices that worked through pure stubbornness. Human diplomats were making deals with species that had been enemies for centuries. Human explorers were finding lost technologies in places where others had searched for millennia. The ethereal commune sent their most disturbing report yet. The humans have weaponized quantum uncertainty, their energy master transmitted. They build devices that exist in multiple states simultaneously until needed. Their weapons fire probability instead of particles. Dr. Sarah Kim, working in a secret laboratory on Europa, would have laughed at that description. She wasn't weaponizing quantum uncertainty. She was just really good at making things work when they shouldn't. The trick, she explained to her team, is to not think too hard about whether something should be possible. Just build it and see what happens. Her latest creation looked like a child's science project. Wires held together with tape, circuits, drawn in marker, and a power source that was basically a modified microwave, but when she activated it, nearby space folded in impossible ways. According to physics, this shouldn't work, her assistant pointed out. According to physics, bumblebees shouldn't be able to fly, Sarah replied. But they do it anyway. The most shocking discovery came from the ancient archives of the Architect Collective. Their AI systems had been quietly studying human behavior and making connections no living being had noticed. The pattern is clear, Archive Prime reported to the Council. Every galactic civilization goes through phases. First comes the chaos phase, rapid expansion, creativity, conflict. Then the order phase, stability, peace, stagnation. Finally comes the death phase, decline, extinction, or transformation. The current Council species had all survived their chaos phase by choosing order and stability. They had become powerful, wise, and completely predictable. They had avoided destruction by avoiding all risk. But there is another pattern, the archive continued. Every few million years, a species appears that refuses to choose between chaos and order. They embrace both. These species either destroy themselves quickly or transcend normal limitations entirely. High Counselor Vextar studied the data with growing unease. Are you suggesting that humans are following this transcendence pattern? The probability is significant, Archive Prime computed. They show all the indicators. Rapid technological advancement despite primitive starting points. Successful interaction with technology that ignores other species. Ability to adapt to any environment or situation. Most importantly, they refuse to be limited by what should be possible. Ancient whisper in darkness made grinding sounds of deep concern. If this is true, if they are following the transcendence pattern, then we have made a terrible mistake. The Void speakers remembered the last transcendent species they had encountered. The predecessors had vanished 10 million years ago, leaving behind technology so advanced that current galactic civilization still couldn't understand it. Before disappearing, they had left a message that still echoed in ancient databases. We go now beyond the need for physical form, beyond the limitation of single worlds or single thoughts. Those who would follow must first learn that impossible is simply a word used by those who lack imagination. As War Leader Brutus's fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, one more report arrived. Dr. Kenji Tanaka had made another discovery in the ruins. Hidden beneath the deepest chamber was a map, showing the location of every transcendent species site in the galaxy. And according to the map, humans had somehow found and activated more transcendent technology in 50 years than the current Council had in 10,000. They're not just randomly good with ancient technology, Kenji reported. They're drawn to it, or it's drawn to them. Either way, they're waking up things that have been sleeping since before our current galaxy existed. Vextar made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. War Leader Brutus, delay your attack. We need more information before we act. But Brutus had already entered hyperspace. His fleet was committed to the attack on the Sol system, as the most powerful military force in galactic history raced toward Earth. Humans across the galaxy felt something stirring. Ancient sites began powering up. Long-dead technologies started humming with new energy. And in the deepest parts of space, things that had been waiting for millions of years began to wake up. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object. But in this case, humanity was both forces at once. War Leader Brutus emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system and immediately knew something was wrong. His tactical displays showed readings that made no sense. "Commander," his sensor operator reported, "the entire system appears to be weaponized." Brutus studied the displays with growing confusion. Every asteroid had been moved into defensive positions. The gas giant's moons were covered with structures that looked innocent, but radiated weapon signatures. Even the space debris around Earth seemed to be arranged in patterns. "Impossible," Brutus muttered. "No species can militarize an entire star system in 30 days. Admiral Marcus Torres watched the alien fleet from Earth's orbital command station. Around him, junior officers waited nervously for orders. They were outnumbered 100 to 1. The enemy ships were larger, faster, and armed with technology humanity barely understood. "Admiral," Communications Officer Janet Park reported, "the alien fleet is hailing us. They're demanding immediate surrender." Torres smiled grimly. "Tell them we're busy right now. Maybe they could come back later." On the Hegemony flagship, Brutus received the human response with disbelief. "Busy? They're facing the most powerful fleet in galactic history and they're busy?" His tactical officer, a scarred veteran of dozens of conquests, studied the sensor readings. "War leader, I've never seen defensive positions like these. They're using everything, asteroids, space stations, even their garbage as weapons platforms." "Then we'll destroy everything," Brutus decided. "Fire on the outermost defensive ring." The Hegemony's planet cracker weapons lit up space with beams of pure energy. Each beam could slice through a moon like butter. They struck the human asteroid fortresses with devastating force. The asteroids exploded as expected. But instead of being destroyed, the explosions created clouds of metallic debris that absorbed and redirected the energy beams. What should have been humanity's destruction became their first defensive victory. "Clever," Brutus admitted grudgingly, "but it won't save them." Captain Rosa Martinez commanded the human destroyer Indomitable, one of humanity's newest warships. It was tiny compared to the alien vessels, armed with primitive kinetic weapons instead of energy beams. By all logic, it should have been vaporized in the first exchange. Instead, Rosa ordered something that no Council species had ever attempted: a ramming attack. "Captain," her weapons officer protested, "their shields will stop us cold." "Will they?" Rosa asked. "Those shields are designed to stop energy weapons and missiles. But what about a ship that's also a giant kinetic projectile?" The Indomitable accelerated toward the Hegemony flagship at maximum speed. Brutus watched in amazement as the small human ship ignored his defensive fire and charged directly at his supposedly impenetrable shields. The shields had never been tested against a multi-thousand-ton object traveling at significant fractions of light speed. Physics won the battle. The Indomitable punched through the energy barrier like a bullet through tissue paper. Rosa's ship was badly damaged by the impact, but it was inside the enemy's defenses. Her boarding parties immediately began what humans called aggressive maintenance on Hegemony technology. "What are they doing to my ship?" Brutus demanded as system after system began failing. His engineering officer looked stunned. "They're modifying our technology, war leader. They're using our own systems against us, but in ways that make no sense." Sergeant Mike Rodriguez, fresh from his victory over the Nexari champion, led one of the boarding teams through the alien ship's corridors. His squad carried improvised weapons, modified mining tools, reprogrammed maintenance robots, and devices that looked like they'd been built in someone's garage. "Remember," Mike told his team, "we're not trying to understand their technology. We're trying to break it in useful ways." When they reached the ship's main computer core, Mike's team began what could only be described as controlled chaos. They rerouted power conduits through life support systems. They connected weapon controls to the ship's gravity generators. They turned the internal communication system into a feedback loop that created ear-splitting noise throughout the ship. "This is insane," the Hegemony's chief engineer reported to Brutus. "They're making our systems work in ways they were never designed for. It's like they're rewriting the laws of physics through pure stubbornness." Throughout the system, similar battles raged. Human ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting with jury-rigged repairs. Human weapons that shouldn't work kept firing through creative modifications. Human tactics that made no sense kept succeeding through pure audacity. The energy beings tried to disable human systems remotely, but found their attempts redirected back at them. Dr. Sarah Kim's quantum uncertainty devices turned the aliens' own energy attacks into power sources for human weapons. The Zephyrians attempted another mass telepathic assault, only to discover that human minds under stress became even more chaotic and resistant. Worse, some humans seemed to be developing resistance to psychic attacks in real time, adapting to alien mental intrusion like antibodies fighting an infection. War Leader, Brutus's communications officer, reported, "We're receiving a transmission from the human captain who boarded our ship. Put her through," Brutus growled. Rosa Martinez appeared on his view screen. Her uniform was torn, her face was bloody, and half her ship's systems were failing. But her eyes held something that made the ancient warrior take a step back. Absolute, unshakable determination. "War Leader Brutus," she said calmly, "I have a proposition for you. You're hardly in a position to make demands, human." Rosa smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Actually, I am. My people have been studying your technology for the past hour. We've figured out how to turn your own weapons against your fleet." As if to demonstrate her point, one of Brutus's own ships suddenly began firing on its companions, then another. Within minutes, half his fleet was attacking the other half as human boarding parties took control of alien systems. "How?" Brutus whispered. "Easy," Rosa replied. "Your technology is designed to be efficient and logical. Ours is designed to be adaptable and creative. When you mix them together, well, chaos beats order every time. Around the Sol system, the greatest military force in galactic history was being dismantled by opponents who fought like no species in recorded existence. They used damaged ships as projectiles. They turned enemy weapons into tools. They coordinated attacks using methods that looked like pure chaos, but achieved impossible precision. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. "You call us young," Rosa continued, her image flickering on Brutus's increasingly unstable view screen. "You call us chaotic and dangerous. You're right about us being dangerous. But we're not young. We're not old either. We're just getting started." Brutus looked around his flagship. His crew was in full retreat from the human borders. His weapons were firing randomly due to reprogrammed targeting systems. His shields were actually helping the enemy by redirecting their attacks in useful directions. For the first time in his long military career, War Leader Brutus of the Hegemony ordered a retreat. "All ships," he transmitted to what remained of his fleet, "fall back to the rally point. Immediate withdrawal." As the alien fleet limped away from the Sol system, Rosa Martinez stood on the bridge of her dying ship and watched them go. Around her, damage control teams worked to keep the Indomitable from falling apart completely. "Captain?" her weapons officer asked. "Do we pursue?" "No," Rosa decided. "We've made our point. Let them go tell the Council what they learned here today." Throughout human space, the news spread quickly. The mighty Council fleet had been defeated not by superior technology or overwhelming force, but by human ingenuity and the willingness to try things that shouldn't work. But the victory came with a cost. Humanity had revealed capabilities that the galaxy didn't know existed. They had proven that they were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. On Nexus Prime, High Counselor Vexitar received Brutus's report with growing dread. The humans hadn't just won a battle, they had rewritten the rules of warfare itself. "Assemble the full council," Vexitar ordered. "Emergency session. We may have awakened something that we cannot control." Across the galaxy, other younger species watched the reports from the Sol system with growing excitement. If humans could defeat the Council fleet, what did that mean for everyone else who lived under Council guidance? The old order was beginning to crack, and in the depths of space, ancient technologies continued to wake up, drawn by the chaotic energy of a species that refused to accept limitations. The galaxy would never be the same. The Council chambers on Nexus Prime felt different now. 3 months after the disaster at Sol System, the crystal towers seemed darker. The 12 ancient species sat in their circle, but the confidence was gone. Fear had taken its place. High Counselor Vextar's crystalline form flickered with uncertainty as he reviewed the reports. The situation is worse than we initially calculated. War Leader Brutus still bore scars from the human boarding attack. His ship had been repaired, but his pride remained broken. The humans didn't just defeat us. They turned our own technology against us. My warriors are afraid to engage them again. But the military defeat was only the beginning. Across the galaxy, other species were asking uncomfortable questions for the first time in millennia. The Kythera have withdrawn from Council oversight, Elder Luminous reported, its energy form pulsing with distress. They claim they no longer need our guidance. The silicon-based resonants have declared independence, added Data Core Nexus. They say if humans can govern themselves, so can they. Ancient Whisper in Darkness made grinding sounds of deep concern. 6 species have left our guidance in the past month. This has never happened before. The aquatic Kythera had been under council management for over 2,000 years. Their homeworld was a paradise of floating cities and underwater gardens, perfectly peaceful and completely stagnant. They had forgotten how to make their own decisions until they saw humans fight impossible odds and win. Why should we need babysitters when these young mammals can defeat the council fleet? Asked Kythera leader Flow with Current during their independence broadcast. If they can govern themselves, we can remember how to govern ourselves. Similar movements were spreading across council space. Species that had accepted guidance for millennia suddenly wanted to try making their own choices. The old order was crumbling. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked into the council chambers one final time. But she wasn't alone. Behind her came representatives from 6 different species that had withdrawn from council oversight. The sight made several council members recoil in shock. Impossible, Vextar whispered. Independent species working together? This violates every principle of galactic order. Sarah took her place at the podium, but now she spoke for more than just humanity. High Counselor, we're here to discuss the future of the galaxy. There is nothing to discuss, Vextar replied, but his voice lacked its usual power. Resolution 2387 stands. Humanity must accept council guidance. About that, Sarah said with a slight smile. We've prepared a counter-proposal. The document she presented made the council members recoil in horror. Instead of accepting subservience, humanity was proposing true partnership. Equal representation in galactic decisions, an end to the protective governance system, self-determination for all species regardless of age or development level. This is chaos, protested Artist Prime Symmetry. Without council guidance, young species will destroy themselves. They always do they? Asked Representative Swift Current of the newly independent Kythera. Our people have rediscovered innovation in just 3 months. We're creating art and music we had forgotten how to make. We're building new cities. We're alive again. Dr. Kenji Tanaka had made more discoveries in the ancient ruins. His latest findings explained everything about the Council's fears. Every galactic civilization goes through the same cycle, Sarah explained to the Council. Growth, stability, stagnation, death. The current Council species survived by choosing stability over growth. You became wise, but you also became static. She activated a holographic display showing archaeological data from across the galaxy. But there's another pattern. Every few million years, a species appears that refuses to choose between growth and stability. They embrace both. These transcendent species either destroy themselves or evolve beyond physical limitations. Archive Prime of the Architect Collective confirmed the data reluctantly. The probability analysis is complete. Humans show all indicators of following the transcendence pattern. They adapt without losing creativity. They build order without abandoning chaos. They solve problems by changing the rules instead of accepting limitations. The last transcendent species left this message. Sarah continued, reading from the ancient ruins. We go now beyond the need for physical form, beyond the limitation of single worlds or single thoughts. Those who would follow must first learn that impossible is simply a word used by those who lack imagination. Vextar's crystalline form dimmed with realization. You're saying that humans are evolving, becoming something beyond normal galactic civilization. We're saying that growth requires risk, Sarah replied. You chose safety over progress. You've spent thousands of years managing younger species instead of learning from them. You've forgotten how to change. The evidence was overwhelming. Human technology was advancing at impossible rates. They were awakening ancient systems across the galaxy. They were inspiring other species to rediscover their own potential. Most importantly, they were succeeding at things the Council had declared impossible. "What do you want from us?" Vextar asked, his telepathic voice small and uncertain. "Partnership," Sarah replied simply. "Not dominance, not subservience. Equal cooperation between species who have different strengths." The young representative from the Resonant Collective spoke next. "Humans have shown us that age doesn't equal wisdom. The Council has knowledge and experience. But you've lost the ability to dream, to imagine, to try impossible things. And we've learned that wisdom comes from making mistakes," added the Kithara representative. "The Council prevented us from failing, but that also prevented us from growing." War leader Brutus made an unexpected confession. "My warriors have been studying human combat techniques. They're crude and chaotic, but they work. We've learned more about warfare in 3 months than we had in 3 centuries. Even ancient Whisper and Darkness admitted change. The young species have reminded us of what we once were, before we became afraid of growth." The debate continued for hours. Some council members clung to the old ways, insisting that chaos led only to destruction. Others began to see possibilities they had forgotten existed. Finally, Vextar called for a vote. Resolution 2387, the Declaration of Human Subservience, must be formally rescinded or maintained. All in favor of rescinding? The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 7 of the 12 council species voted to end humanity's forced subservience. Resolution 2387 is hereby rescinded, Vextar announced. Humanity is free to govern itself. But Sarah Chen had one more surprise. "We appreciate that. But we're not just here to gain our freedom. We're here to offer something to the galaxy." She presented humanity's final proposal, the Galactic Partnership Accord. Instead of the old system of elder species managing younger ones, it proposed cooperation between equals. Shared knowledge, combined exploration, mutual defense against threats that no single species could handle alone. "You want us to treat all species as equals?" asked Elder Luminous. "Even ones that are only centuries old?" "We want you to remember that young doesn't mean inferior," Sarah replied. "And old doesn't mean superior. We all have something to offer." The proposal was radical beyond anything in galactic history, but as the council members considered it, they realized something important. The old system was already breaking down. They could either adapt or become irrelevant. Over the following months, the Galactic Partnership Accord was signed by more than 30 species. The Council's authority didn't disappear, but it transformed from management to cooperation. Human exploration teams began working with Council scientists to study transcendent ruins. Kithara artists collaborated with geometric collective mathematicians to create new forms of beauty. Even war leader Brutus started training exchange programs between human marines and hegemony warriors. The galaxy was changing in ways no one had predicted. On a distant world, Dr. Kenji Tanaka made one final discovery in the ancient ruins. Hidden beneath all the other messages was writing in a script that looked almost human. "To those who come after, evolution is not about becoming something else. It is about becoming more yourself than you ever thought possible. The galaxy needs gardeners, not rulers. Plant seeds of possibility and watch what grows." As Sarah Chen left the council chambers for the last time, she looked up at the alien stars and smiled. Humanity had come to the galaxy as explorers and been told they needed to be managed. Instead, they had reminded the galaxy how to grow. The universe was vast and full of wonders, and for the first time in millions of years, every species in the galaxy was free to explore it together. The age of management was over. The age of partnership had begun, and in the deepest parts of space, ancient technologies continued to wake up, ready to share their secrets with species brave enough to dream of impossible things.